The Lindbergh Schools Board of Education Special Meeting 1571 is now called to order. Dr. Lake, do we have any changes to the agenda?
We do not.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Kathy,
Second.
second by Matt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We will begin with 4.01, a discussion topic on our book, What School Could Be, Chapter 6 through 10. We had postponed this at the January workshop. So if anyone would like to start.
I'll start, since I was on the phone the last time. So there was one thing from the first part of the book that I just wanted to point out, was that there was one story, and I'm really excited about this book, by the way, but there was one story in the book that I wasn't as excited about, because it was a teacher who said he was working with projects and his kindergartners just learned to read, and he didn't really know how, and they scored better on tests, but he didn't know how. And I think that as we talk about moving forward with more project-based work, it's important to remember that we can't just not know how. We have to be intentional in our teaching, and I think that that is where some of the work with the standards-based learning that we're doing is going to come in, because it's going to set the stage for every skill that we want our kids to have, and you're going to be able to take those skills and concepts and apply them in so many different areas, and I feel like they're the basis for project-based learning, and that the work we're doing is opening up the world of what this book is all about, which is making learning a little more interesting and more fun for kids. So that's my overview.
That's good.
I had written that same point down. Thanks for taking it over for me. There was one quote in the book, or in these chapters, that spoke to me, and it was that kids learn more and faster when they want to learn. And I just think that, I know our teachers have that in mind every single day, and they're trying to find new ways to teach the same things, but to interest kids more.
I think that's pretty evident with the addition of the drone class that we're offering. We're finding more and more ways of giving opportunities for our students to learn something that's personal to them and something that interests them.
And that also goes with the individualized learning that we are working towards. A part that stood out to me is it was giving different situations and scenarios of how students thrive. And the four main components is that students thrive in classrooms where they develop purpose, essential skills and mindsets, agency, and deep retained knowledge. And so my hope is that we will continue to push kids towards those skills so that they can continue to, where we can continue to help develop those for them so that they can continue to succeed outside of Lindbergh.
I think one of the stories, too, was about a student who failed. They didn't get the project completed. And so that teaching that resiliency and how to bounce back from something like that is something we've been working on. And so the project-based learning will hopefully do that as well. I'm sure it will. But I think that's kind of neat because, just today I had 1,000 things happen. And so being resilient to continue with the day or move on to the next project is so important as an adult, but also as a student.
And going with that, I really liked the one part where it talked about students at home, you don't exactly know what's going on at home. Maybe they're watching other children, or maybe they have responsibilities outside of school. So kind of moving away from that homework, work at home kind of mindset, and moving towards how are we preparing them in the classroom and how are we retaining that outside of the classroom rather than trying to make them teach themselves outside of the classroom, if that makes sense.
There was one quote in here. Dr. Lake, you're gonna like this one. I don't know where it is, so I'm not gonna get it, but it basically said that we have to stop saying we have to be able to measure it. And if you look back at my campaign page, you'll see one of my little points was measurable success. And I think that after reading this book, I think that needs a little bit of tweaking, because it's not that it has to be measured, it's that it needs to be demonstrated. And the projects that are in here and some of the just different ways that they're teaching children to learn and to retain information is demonstrating success, not measuring it, because the quote in here said something about if you have to measure it, you're standardizing it, and once you try to standardize it too much, you're taking all the agency away from the students, and they are no longer able to bloom because they're forced into this line. And it talked about project-based learning being better for dyslexic learners, which is important to me. And so I just really, this book really spoke to me, and as much as I want to say you have to be able to measure success, I don't think you have to be able to measure it. I think you have to be able to demonstrate it, and I think that's the mind shift that we all need to just keep in mind as we're moving forward.
So I'm sure I read this somewhere because I'm not probably smart enough to come up with this on my own, but not everything that counts can be counted. There are things that we do when we educate kids that need to count, like we need to make sure our kids can read, they can do math, they have science, all those things, but there's lots of other ways of evidence of success. So kind of went to the heart of what you're saying, not everything that counts to be successful in life can be counted. It needs to be demonstrated, it needs to be that. And again, like I said, I say that often, but I'm sure I read that somewhere, so.
Anyone else?
One final thought, sorry, I have all the thoughts. One final thing that really stuck out from here is that there's really no one way to do this. There's no one way to say this is the best way to start implementing project-based learning, this is the best way to do it. All these districts are doing it in really different ways. Some are doing it with like a school within a school, so maybe if a student isn't ready for it, then you know, you start it with one group, and others are doing it with internships out in the world. There's just a lot of different ways to do this, and so I think I'm very excited about finding the way that Lindbergh wants to do it. And now I'm done.
And I'll just add Tara, since we talked about that earlier. She's going to come visit the Personalized Learning Academies at my school next year.
She won't let us come until next spring now.
Give me a little February.
It is, I mean, it's exciting. So, you know, my conversations with Kevin, so, you know, in our conversations about, you know, this isn't for every kid. You know, there are kids that want a traditional education. So how do we find that path that I want to do Algebra 1 like my mom and dad did Algebra 1, but we have kids walking our hallways like, I don't want to do Algebra 1 that way because I'm probably not going to use Algebra 1, but how can I still learn what I need to with algebra and be more relevant and more hands-on and more real-world types of learning? So you're exactly right. What's cool and exciting is we get to kind of design it. And we've been in this conversation, and there was this thing called COVID that slowed us down for the last couple of years. So we're about 2 years behind where we would have liked to have been when we got here, but we will continue those conversations and get us there. So yes, we're excited to come visit your school.
It's a little preview of our compass for next week's meeting. Exciting.
Right, we'll move on to our consent agenda items. We have 2 this evening. Does anyone wish to pull either of these for individual consideration? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve consent agenda items 5.01 to 5.02 as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Megan,
Second.
second by Mike. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. 6.0 for the record. We do have one for the record this evening, 6.01, the 2023 to 2024 school calendar update, and this is our first reading. So you can contact Dr. Sparks with any questions, and it will be back at our April 20th meeting for approval. We have 2 resolutions this evening, and we will be reading them. We don't usually do that. So 7.01, Resolution of Appreciation honoring the candidates for the Board of Education. Whereas the Lindbergh School Boards of Education is made up of 7 members who serve staggered terms of 3 years each, and whereas district residents Matt Alonzo, Christy Watts, Andrew Lawson, Pauline Weber, and David Brandelman filed for the 3-year terms of office, and whereas their willingness to serve on the school board is an expression of the highest interest in the educational welfare of Lindbergh's youth. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education commends Matt Alonzo, Christy Watts, Andrew Lawson, Pauline Weber, and David Randleman for their continued interest and support in Lindbergh schools and the education of all students, and for their willingness to voluntarily serve the people of the Lindbergh community. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation honoring the candidates for the Board of Education?
So moved.
Motion by Julia, second by Kathy.
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, next we have 7.02, Resolution of Appreciation honoring Dr. Kathy Carlock-Lorenz. It says to stand, yes.
Yep, come on.
I think you have to stand
Yeah,
while
we're going out here.
it's what it tells me to say. All right, whereas Dr. Kathy Carlock-Lorenz was elected to the Lindbergh Schools Board of Education in April 2017 and faithfully served students, staff, and families in the Lindbergh community as a Board of Education Director for 6 years. And whereas Dr. Carlock-Lorenz additionally served Lindbergh Schools as a teacher from 1993 to 2004, a room parent volunteer, and a Lindbergh Athletic Association volleyball and soccer coach. And whereas Dr. Carlock-Lorenz served many committees within Lindbergh Schools, including the Middle School Task Force and Board Advisory Committees. And whereas Dr. Carlock-Lorenz was named a Lindbergh Leader in 2009, which is the district's highest honor recognizing excellence in leadership and service. And whereas Dr. Carlock-Lorenz held the instrumental role of chairperson of the grassroots supporters for the Prop R 2008 campaign and helped facilitate a victory. And whereas Dr. Carlock-Lorenz is a true advocate for education in Lindbergh schools, and the district is better as a result of her contributions to the Board of Education. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Board of Education extends their sincere thanks to Dr. Kathy Carlock-Lorenz for her dedication to students, education, and the sacrifices she made during her 2 terms as Lindbergh Schools Board of Education Director. That's the end of that one. But before we, hold on, I want to, hold on.
Yes, yes.
Hold on. We have to approve it first.
Okay, approve it.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation honoring Dr. Kathy Carlock-Lorenz?
So moved.
Motion by Matt,
Second.
second by Christy. All those in favor? Aye. I'm assuming there's no opposed. All right, motion passes 7-0. Congratulations, Kathy.
Yes. Well, Kathy, it's been an awesome, 5 years now? So, Kathy and I first met, obviously, through the interview process, but Kathy and I had an instant connection. She had a educator that she had worked with here in St. Louis that I was working with in Blue Valley, and so Kathy and I just kind of this bond between us and her just being in the education field, and just it's been such an honor and pleasure to work with you the last 5 years. Your insights and providing that educational lens as a building person sitting on the board, building administrator, it was invaluable for the work we've done the last 5 years. And if I could summarize, Kathy, I would say if we could have a position called the Queen of South County, that would be you.
Oh, well then look at Craig.
I know. If anybody would be the Queen of South County, it would be Kathy Lorenz. I learned that very quickly. And I think it's important to note, too, that Kathy is a second-generation board member as well. So her father served. So if there's anyone, we all care about our community, and we all are invested in our community, but the Lorenz family, for sure, Kathy's family, for sure, yeah, and Craig is, as well. Very invested in our community and really care. So they definitely bleed green and gold. So thank you for your service, Kathy. Yes. And we have a gift for you. So you're the first one to get the new gift. So go ahead and open it, because I think it's something that we actually do they really want a plaque? It's going to go in a box in a basement somewhere. So we decided to give her a compass. So it's a little compass that will sit on her desk. It's because we never want you to lose your way.
Aww.
That's right. So you're welcome. Yep. And I would like to say I came up with that idea, but I didn't. Andrea and Beth, probably. So, and we need to get a picture. Yes. All right.
What is, I said. That one. All right. So now we will receive election returns and declare results. It was duly noted that in the manner of providing for the annual school board election held on Tuesday, April 4th, 2023, notice of said election was given in accordance with the laws of the state of Missouri. The board thereupon received the results from the St. Louis County Election Board website and ascertained the results of said election to be: Matt Alonso received 4,475 votes, 23.89%. Christy Watts received 4,680 votes, 24.99%. Andrew Lawson received 4,136 votes, 22.08%. Pauline Weber received 1,963 votes, 10.48%. And David Randleman received 3,476 votes, 18.56%. Do I have a motion to declare Matt Alonso, Christy Watts, and Andrew Lawson the elected directors of the Lindbergh Schools Board of Education for 3 years as indicated?
So moved.
Motion by Megan.
Second.
Second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And I will now ask Matt, Christy, and Andrew to join Madam Secretary Megan Vetter in the front of the dais to take the oath of office.
Do I need to do this and this? It's on. Okay. Hi, everyone. Congratulations. Okay, if you will please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Andrew Lawson.
Do solemnly swear
Solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
that I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of a member of the Lindbergh Schools Board of Education
of a member of the Lindbergh Schools Board of Education
of the State of Missouri according to law.
of the State of Missouri according to law.
Congratulations.
If there's any, am I on? Hey, if there's any family members that want to get a picture, you can up front here. Family members want to get a picture?
Well, like everyone left with Kathy.
Yeah.
And I will now turn the meeting over to Dr. Lake for the election of president and vice president.
Okay, at this time, I will serve as temporary chair. Oh, no, sorry. All right, we're going to take a quick picture.
You're good, you're good. The 14-year-old was that way today for me, so, you know, it never stops. How dare I schedule his orthodontics appointment today right when I made it? And why didn't I tell him? It was, it's been on your calendar, it's 10 weeks. I don't want that. It's all my fault.
Your family, Tracy wants a picture.
You want one?
There's a Is that a yes? What's up? Oh, man, your family likes you. They came. My family doesn't. It sounded fine to me.
That's it, I couldn't hear it.
Test 1 2 1 2.
That didn't get Christine.
My mic's on. All right, why don't you say that again?
And I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Tony Lake for the election of the president and vice president.
Okay, at this time, I will serve as temporary chair for the purposes of electing president and vice president for the Board of Education. So at this time, do I have a motion for a nomination for the president of the Board of Education? Yeah.
Yes. I would like to nominate Jennifer Miller for president, please.
Any other nominations? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Vote passes 7-0. Or did you vote, Jen?
I did.
Okay, 7-0. Now, do I have a motion for nomination for vice president of the Board of Education?
I move to nominate Christy Watts as vice president.
Do I have any other nominations? Okay. Do I have a?
Second.
Matt seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Did you vote?
I accept.
7-0. All right, thank you. And now I'm going to turn the meeting back over to the president of the Board of Education, Jen Miller.
Do I have a motion of nomination for the secretary of the Board of Education?
I would like to nominate Megan Vetter.
Any other nominations? Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. Do I have a motion of nomination for treasurer of the Board of Education?
A second for Matt Alonso.
Okay. Any other nominations? All right, I have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. Each year, the Lindbergh Board appoints an MSBA delegate and alternate. Ms. Christy Watts currently serves as the MSBA delegate, and Mrs. Megan Vetter currently serves as the alternate. Are you doing alternate? And she's, okay. Do I have a motion to appoint Christy Watts to serve as the MSB delegate and Megan Vetter to serve as the alternate? All right, motion by Julia. Second by Andrew. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. 11.0 recess. We already completed executive session, therefore a recess is not needed, and we will now move to 13.0 adjournment. This concludes our special meeting 1571. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mike. Second by Megan. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Special board meeting 1571 is adjourned. Do we need to hit the gavel again?
Yes.
The Lindbergh Schools Board of Education Workshop 1572 is now called to order. Dr. Lake, do we have any changes to the agenda?
We do not.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Matt. Second by Andrew. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 6-0. We are moving on to our discussion topics, 2023 Learning Report, and I will turn it over to Dr. Tara Sparks and our building principals to present the 2023 Learning Reports.
Thank you. I invite our secondary principals to come up to the tables. But before they begin sharing the story of what learning has looked like over the course of this year in their individual buildings, I just want to go through a couple of big picture ideas that kind of frame the conversation that you'll hear tonight overall. We talk about our success measures within the district quite a bit, that our focus is on high quality teachers, the social and emotional well-being of our students and staff, student mastery of the 4 C's, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity, personalized learning for all of our students and staff, and also student satisfaction. So that's kind of the guidepost that we use in sharing the experiences our students have had throughout the course of this year. And if you go to the next slide, I think it's important to kind of highlight some big elements that you'll hear throughout each of the different presentations. So we talk often as a district about standards-based learning. So we'll try not to use acronyms tonight, but we might use them at times. So standards-based learning, SBL, this is us ensuring that the standards that are most important for our students are ones that we're expecting them to master, that we are working hard to ensure their success in these areas. And then under that umbrella, we'll also talk about things like standards-based grading, et cetera, ways that we give feedback to our students and families around learning. Social emotional learning screeners. It's important to note that as you hear the different stories being shared tonight from our elementary, middle, and high schools, that there were actually 2 social emotional learning screeners that were given to students this year because we were piloting 2 different options. We were piloting, actually there were 3, I should clarify. At the elementary level, we have SABRS, which is a part of our FastBridge assessment platform. And then at the secondary level, we were piloting Panorama and Satchel Pulse to determine which one gave us better information to support our students. So you hear about that. Multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS. Tier 1 is what we do for all students. Tier 2 is an additional layer of intervention, and Tier 3 is even more specific and targeted intervention beyond that. So it's ways of supporting student needs, both in terms of enrichment as well as remediation. Individual career and academic planning, also known as the ICAP. That's how we support our students in being college and career ready and personalizing the experience that's going to work for them beyond their Lindbergh school experience. So while there's a lot of work that happens in the elementary and the middle school, that formalized process really begins in 8th grade for our students. Design thinking, you'll hear some references to that tonight. That is the process where our students are empathizing, they are ideating, they are defining, they are prototyping, and ultimately testing their different ideas. And then finally, Lindbergh Life Success Skills. We've got what we affectionately call the pinwheel on the TV in front of you, and you'll hear references to the main topics of that as well tonight. So just a way to kind of frame some of the conversations and potentially some of the acronyms you may hear. And we'll go to the next slide and start with our first principle.
Just a quick reminder before Eric starts, and remember we will review academic data in July. So as part of the learning report, this is just part of it. We do this part of kind of the things that can't be counted. It's kind of more evidence. There are things in here that we have some measures for from survey results and things like that, but this is a lot of that stuff that you were talking about, Julia, tonight. So, but we will do the academic review, data review in July.
Correct. And so I turn it over to our high school principal, Dr. Eric Cochran. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Is that on? Red is bad. Green is good. There it is. All right. I feel a tremendous amount of pressure to set a good pace for my colleagues behind me. As a timekeeper, Dr. Sparks is quite the taskmaster. I don't know if you saw her go like this, but I'm going to try to keep it moving along, but make sure you ask any questions if you have any at the end. Very proud of the work that has been done at the high school again this year as we have undergone. I can't imagine a school that's gone through more transformation than what we have gone through over the last 3 years, and we are on year 3 of construction, and so we're excited about everything that's starting to take shape. So if we go into the next slide, we'll start diving into some of the work we've done in social emotional learning. For us, without question, the key to our social emotional learning curriculum is Power Lunch. It's one of the primary ways that we support our students in the middle of the day, every single student getting that opportunity to decompress, to really take ownership of their day and to determine what their needs are. And through Power Lunch, We have 79 clubs. Most of these clubs, almost all of these clubs, are entirely built by our student body. They request a club be made, and 9 times out of 10, that club gets approved because it is something that's going to bring value to our school. In addition, we've been doing some equity work at the high school. And this year in particular, some of our clubs, and this is where a lot of this blends together, is that some of the clubs that students have started have been some affinity groups. So you have seen a great year for our Black Student Union and our Asian Pacific Islander Club, who have had several celebrations throughout our building that allow our other students to learn about other cultures and the many different diverse students that are at our school. And then probably the capstone really of our equity work, and again, this is not Lindbergh High School administration, these are kids. These are the kids that are driving this. I know several board members were able to attend our equity night. Every time, this is our second annual equity night that's run by an organization called CAP, and couldn't be more proud of this group of students who shares their experiences, good job, of what it's like to be a student at Lindbergh High School, especially when you are a member of a marginalized or historically marginalized group, how to navigate our building. So if we go to the next slide, we dive into some of, Dr. Sparks mentioned some of those surveys that we have given this year as we're piloting SEL screeners. This is actually the screener for Panorama. And with this survey, you see some of our strengths and you see some of our weaknesses, at least according to the students. If you look down to the bottom right, that survey shows an area that students feel one of our higher numbers, 78% of our students saying that they feel that they have a teacher or another adult from the school who they can count on. And to us, that is one of the most important things you can ask a student, especially in a school with over 2,200 students that we are constantly trying to make feel like a small school. Those connections and those relationships are vital. And then on the bottom left is an area that the survey identifies as an area of potential growth, where only 36% of our students mentioned that they get their work done right away. Now, that does not sound like teenagers that I've known in my time, but they are able to recognize that as an area that they can grow, and we will have to, as a school, figure out how to help support that growth. The next 2 slides show you our survey results from Satchel Pulse. In this first one, which I just want to point out again, with the emphasis that we've had on things like equity over the last couple of years, I'm really proud of the fact that our students mentioned appreciating diversity and respect for others as our top two standards here on this survey. So our students are mostly in a really good place, I think, when it comes to these benchmarks. And so these are other strengths that we have according to the Satchel Pulse survey. And then in the next slide, you'll see some, again, areas for improvement, identifying emotions, stress management, self-motivation, which kind of pairs pretty well with the results of the Panorama survey. On the next slide, I wanted to highlight the 4 C's and how the 4 C's are interacting with our new building. This new building has really afforded us and our staff opportunities for creativity when it comes to teaching, using these spaces. When we envisioned this building, one of the things we were hoping to see was a new way of teaching, something that was going to break beyond the walls of a traditional classroom. And these are just some of the pictures. Up on the top left, you see our famous garage doors that we have throughout the building, where a teacher can open up their classroom and allow students to extend that learning out across the hallway into a collaboration space. On the bottom left, you see a student from a science class studying the momentum of a shot put ball versus a tennis ball using the outdoor space of a concrete patio that a few months ago wasn't even there. In the middle, we have students who are using balloons to propel some little carts in science class as well. And then on the right, that's actually a stats class, as students were using the upper balcony above the lobby to measure we have some little action figures that they were dropping and doing bungees off of the balcony so they could measure the consistency of those multiple efforts of bungee jumps. On the next slide, we will see one of the things I'm most proud of, which is the personalized learning that has increased dramatically at Lindbergh. So we have introduced a few new programs here just this year, and we have several programs listed. That first 4 grouping, those are programs, and honestly, that list could be much, much longer. There's a lot of different things that are not included for the sake of brevity, but I wanted to highlight aviation because that is a brand new program to us. We have 61 students currently taking Aviation 1 at Lindbergh High School. AP Seminar, which is one of the courses in our capstone program, is also brand new. We have 55 students taking that very high level class. That was what we replaced the International Baccalaureate program with. We have the Tech Help Desk, where students are helping other students problem solve issues they're having with their technology. We have 19 students doing that every single day. And then we have over 200 students in our biomedical Project Lead the Way program, which is a very popular program. I am ecstatic at how fast that program has become one of the most popular programs for one that didn't really exist only 5 years ago. Another example of this and the choice that we are giving to our students is English 4. Just a couple years ago, we had a very traditional English 4 class. Students took English 4, or they may have taken 1 or 2 of our AP offerings. And our English department decided that they wanted to offer up multiple genres to really allow students their senior year to focus on the type of literature that would most interest them. And so we have multiple genres available for our students, and these are very popular things like true crime, creative writing, science fiction now that students can specialize in rather than simply taking an English 4 survey course. And that's the type of choice that we're trying to provide our students more and more. And then we have other programs that are just around the corner. We'll be expanding next year. We have students already signed up to take Aviation 2. We have our next capstone course, which is AP Research, that students have signed up for. And we are also going to be offering AVID next year, which is a program that's really aimed at targeting some of those students in the middle and trying to challenge them and make sure that those students that are often maybe kind of flying below the radar, that they are being equipped with the skills that are going to ensure that they are prepared for college. And so next slide and final slide, I just always want to make sure I take an opportunity to highlight the work of our teachers, because I think we have amazing teachers, and I want to emphasize that there's a lot of great academic data proving the work that they do. AP tests, for example. So with COVID, we saw a dip in AP scores, and we saw a dip in AP participation, students that were actually taking the test, and you can see that in the bar graph to the right. But we are digging out of that. Our numbers are going back up in terms of the pass rate, and we actually will be giving almost 1,000 AP tests here this spring starting next month. And then ACT, our ACT score is at 23, which again is right around pretty close to where we often are in that 23 point something, 24 range, and well above the state and national average. So really proud of the work that our staff is doing, especially considering all the transition that we have gone through over the last few years. And do you have any questions? I couldn't have possibly done it any faster. All right, if there are no questions, I will now turn it over to my esteemed colleague. Which one of you is next? I missed the rehearsal. I'm sorry. It's Mike.
Right next to you.
All right, so Dr. Mike Stratman from Truman Middle School.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cochran. And thank you, Dr. Cochran. Thank you, the board, for the opportunity to speak tonight about Truman Middle School. We have some really exciting things to share with you. I too want to thank our teachers, because without them and their leadership, I wouldn't have much on my slides right now. So certainly they fed all of the information for these slides. So next slide, please, Colin. I want to start by saying that I'm going to try to talk about these in a clockwise format, starting at the top left. I've also indicated on here which success skill each of these topics kind of address, just to maybe help you make those connections as well. Want to start by talking about the one on the top left, restorative circles training. We had Dr. Shariah Mason, our Director of Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity, help facilitate training with 45 flight crew members. These are student leaders who really do a lot of our work for flyer time and our lessons that we create for students. She helped students learn how to facilitate conversations to strengthen student problem-solving skills, which is so critically important for us at the middle school level. We also have plans to incorporate this into our flyer time lessons, just to develop student self-awareness and concept and how they can help really create a positive environment at Truman. Next slide, the culture, oh, sorry, go back, Colin, I was just seeing if you were paying attention, sorry. Cultures of Us project, this is one that I'm gonna connect later to our social emotional learning data as well. If you can see the picture on the right side, we have flags that from 47 countries that represent each of our students in our school, along with a display case that represents the important and meaningful days, events, holidays that are important to all of those students as well. We have placed a priority on every student seeing themselves in our school. This is one of those opportunities that we've taken, and this was led by our English language specialist, Mrs. Gleich, and her students. So, also want to talk here about every student in the bottom left-hand corner had an opportunity to participate in Black History Month this year. It was important for us to be able to include all students in this opportunity. We had hundreds of students collaborate to make Black History posters. You can see in the picture on the right side of that, those images, they're lining those posters up along the hallway. This is our long T hallway. If you've been to Truman, obviously, you will notice the one really long hallway with a lot of light and windows, and this is where we decided to display those so that students could see these in passing. Our staff could also bring their classes here to talk more about the key figures that were on the wall and that were represented. Now you can go to the next slide, Colin. This slide really is to talk about our social emotional screener data from Satchel Pulse. On the left side, some of the strengths, just kind of connected you to the Cultures of Us project. Appreciating diversity was our #1 strength, which has been a really big deal for us because 5 years ago, this is not one that would have probably been in our top 5 for sure. We've done a lot of work, and it's really centered around the work our staff have really put into this. Recognizing strengths, we've really been talking a lot about student growth and what you're good at and what you need to grow in. And so being able to recognize strengths and that self-awareness is so key for us. Respect for others and reflection are also important things that we've been working on. So it's nice to see that some of the work that we're putting in is paying off for our students and staff. Priorities for improvement, talking about it, identifying emotions, stress management, impulse control. These are all very typical teenage things that they struggle with. And so it's important. We're going to take this to our building leadership team and our flight crew members to talk about how we want to address some of these as areas of improvement. So just proud of the work we've been doing, and it's definitely paying off. So next slide, Colin. This year, again, we implemented 2 schools, 1 book with Sperreng. Really dug a little deeper this year, I think, with an opportunity for weekly discussions connected to social studies class and historical units that they're teaching, centered around empathy toward people that are not like themselves. So really, how can I see characters in this novel, and how do I make connections to myself? Really been a valuable opportunity. It's always great to be able to have a discussion, which you can see in the top picture, an opportunity to talk with an author. Kids really love that. So we had that discussion with author Kate Albus. Just work on building connections with our curriculum and cross-curriculum there. We were also able to partner again with our school resource officer, Officer Austin Holtzman, for our Outsiders unit again this year. It's a great opportunity every year for kids to critically think and problem solve as they're connecting the novel to real life, and also how are they connecting that novel to themselves. through character analysis, reenacting of scenes. It was concluded where I had an opportunity to be the judge, and students had various roles, and they took an opportunity to ultimately decide whether characters were innocent or guilty. So something that was fun for them. Next slide. Our STEAM Careers class hosted 9 guest speakers in person this year, as well as some virtual speakers. The goal was really to build authentic, meaningful connections with careers and our community. Students developed questions and learned the importance of clear communication and why collaboration is such an important and critical skill set in the workplace. In our 6th grade book club units on the right side, our students enhanced their understanding and connection with their novel by developing a proposal for change to our school that they believe will lead to an improvement. This specific project supported increasing accessibility for students with disabilities. Students used Canva, iMovie, and Apple tools to develop their proposals. Next slide, please, Colin. Our 7th grade social studies unit created some trading cards to develop a deeper understanding of various battles in history. The teacher used pre-assessment tools to identify levels of understanding kids had coming into the unit to ensure that all students were able to enhance their understanding of the topics. On the right side, we held a school-wide tech time earlier this year during flyer time. During this student-led event, all students had an opportunity to lead a tech session on one of 3 focuses: operations, creativity, and digital citizenship. We had 60 students present and 15 staff members present. Just a great opportunity for kids to learn from each other and also learn about what tools are relevant to them. Next slide, please. We have also increased our outcomes for student growth this year, which was highlighted by goal-setting activities. You can see in that spreadsheet-looking format on the top picture. This is an example of what students are doing to track their goals and their data and progress on NWEA assessments specifically. This included reflective opportunities on the right side for how they can grow and certainly increased student agency. The activity fair, bottom right-hand corner, was held during flyer time this year, highlighted the importance of getting involved in school. Research supports students who participate in extracurricular activities have higher grades, more positive attitudes, and higher academic aspirations. So that is what I have to share with you tonight for Truman Middle School. Do you have any questions?
I just have a comment. I like that you highlighted the success skills with, for each thing. I think that's really cool. Maybe we can do it in other things.
Thank you.
When do we see the student proposals for the changes to Truman?
I have them, so I can certainly forward them to you. Some of them are perfectly reasonable requests, and some are a little out there, but all good. Students, anytime we can give them the opportunity. I know this started years ago with Dr. Sparks as principal. She really did a great job of working with 6th grade social studies, where they were working on the Bill of Rights, and they were creating some opportunities for improvement in our school too. So this is kind of a spin-off of that, but certainly a great opportunity. Kids love to have buy-in in middle school and voice, and anytime you can listen to them, they're super excited to share what they have to share, but I'm happy to share some of those with you guys.
Absolutely.
All right. I would like to now introduce our next presenter, Sperreng Middle School Principal, Dr. Lauren Bogert.
Thank you, Dr. Stratman. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you all what excellence in learning and designing the future looks like at Sperreng Middle School this year. As you know, condensing a school year into a few slides is no small feat, so please accept this invitation to each of you to stop by anytime you would like to see more on a daily basis what Sperreng Middle School is all about. As you look for our next slide here, Colin, we started off with how to build excellence and our why once again for the school year, and it really is about a strong foundational component to relationships and creating a sense of belonging and dignity. So on the top left, I too will follow in a clockwise manner. In the top left, you definitely see our logo for the year. We say it every day on the announcements, and we mean it, we own it, and we even have sweet t-shirts for Fridays to wear. But but we do mean it. As you go to the right, we start every Monday now with a circle question, a restorative circle. So every Flyer Time family group, which meets Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays, has a circle question. So we started the year off with something like, what makes you smile? And something that all kids can use a talking piece, pass the talking piece around, and share about themselves or share about just the weekend. Kids love to talk, and this is a really engaging group. And the picture you see here is Miss Christine Johnson in 7th grade, and she really knows what it is all about to build those relationships and is an excellent model of that. As you move down to the right, about 4 o'clock there, you see the Zen Den. We also made something from a Lindbergh Schools Foundation grant, a space for our teachers. So it was very valuable in our back to school surveys that teachers also had that sense of belonging and a focus on wellness. So we have a room upstairs across from 6 Gold, which is a Zen Den. And each week, that room takes on a different shape and a theme. So one week it might be a hydration station and you'll see bottled water. Another week it might be music and there'll be playlists in there with a little boombox for the teachers to listen to or just to grab a snack on Fridays. As you move around, you will also see our data there, as Drs. Cochran and Strutman were discussing. We piloted Panorama, not Satchel Pulse. So if you look at our data, as you look to the first one, I think it really speaks to our sense of belonging and our relationships. So as you kind of look at the data, what I would like to see in improvement is that all of those blue bars are 80% or above. So those are questions that you can unpack, which we can do if you have any questions about these, but our strengths really are in the relationships. Even that, though, at 84%, there are students who may have said they didn't have a connection with an adult in school. So we took this data to our elective teachers, and for the first time, we PLC with our elective teachers, so professional learning community time, and they unpacked the students that said no, and they made action steps and goals to reach out and connect with each and every one of those students. We also see a growth area for us with strategies. Those questions for a middle schooler might be something like, what do you do if you get stuck on a math problem? And often they're honest. They're like, I'll raise my hand, I'll Google it, I'll look for the answer. And in today's day and age, we can see why, but we really have some work to do there too, to push in, not just through a Flyer Time activity, but on a daily basis through each and every class on perseverance and what it means to show that through a class or through a challenge. And then, again, just all of these do tie together with our Lindbergh life skills. You should know that this activity was not done alone by me or a homework assignment on the weekend. We did this with our staff in both middle school buildings. So we used a walk-around activity with the Lindbergh life success skills and asked our teachers where are these skills presenting themselves in each and every corner of our buildings. Next slide, please. As for the 4 C's in action, you can see an example of what I just described with a staff activity from both buildings in the center of this slide with creativity and critical thinking. So I chose a few here. On the top right, you will see, much like Dr. Strutman was discussing, it is a proposal from students in Miss Sauer's art class where they were using design thinking to create artistic displays for the public to see issues in the building. So this was one on flexible seating and using an iPad. And then all of these, we were invited to the hangar space, which is the old copy center over at Sperreng if you haven't been there. And we had experts walk through and we actually gave feedback and questions to our students on their various concerns, such as hallways. They want to rip out lockers and put in nooks instead of having lockers. They want dry erase boards. They want a lot of flexible space in the building. So it was a wonderful opportunity to see our students advocate for our building as well. As you move down to the right, in a core content class, this is science. They're using iPads to demonstrate critical thinking, and this is an activity that really has a lot to do with vocabulary, and it's called hexagonal thinking. So if you have not heard of that concept, it's quite unique to see in terms of processing, learning new vocabulary in science, for example, making categories, and also showing what you can do with moving different categories around quickly on the iPad. In the center, there at the bottom, about 6 o'clock, that is something I'm very proud of during one of our win time sessions. That is a student forum that I held. at this particular group, I did every grade level, and we had questions about how the year was going. So much modeling, as we do in the restorative circles, but bringing students together in one space to hear really from their mouths how things are going in the building. We took all of that data and then shared all of that with our building leadership team to create action steps and follow up as well. Then we took questions and then cycled those back in a feedback loop into flyer time discussion questions once again. And as you keep going around, you can see examples too from the library, but one that is in the 9 o'clock area there, that is a poetry slam. So that is every ELA class that came together and collaborated in 6th grade to create their own poetry. So this has become a tradition. This is year 2 of this with Ms. Hines, our library media specialist, in collaboration with all ELA teachers in 6th grade, and you can really see the creative juices flow in a 6th grade poetry slam. So make sure to mark your calendars next year for this event. At the top, very top, at 12 o'clock, we have examples of game design at work. So if you come upstairs at Sperreng, across from room 216, you will see a wall of QR codes, and you are free to scan any of those and play any of their games. It's a quarter class, so it's very impressive to see their games come to life in a new elective course offering. Next slide, please. Personal learning at work at Sperreng. Once again, those hallways, there's those lockers I was talking about. They are magnetic though, so the students do like to bust out of those classrooms, use flexible space, and here they are engaging in different video recording using various apps, and you will also see them doing scavenger hunts often within these hallways. As you keep moving around, the bottom is a really, really cool project that you can't really capture in one slide. This is also from a science class. The project was, for example, pretend as if you are the tour manager for The Weeknd or Taylor Swift, right? And you're designing a world tour. You need to choose around the world internationally what the best times of year to attend these various countries would be. So this is an analysis of weather using an iPad, and the students had to create a proposal as if they were a tour manager to say, hey, this would be a good time for T Swift to go to Asia, right? So very cool stuff there. And then just that integrity piece, that growth, that work ethic in the next few slides. The bottom left is an example that is a product from Apple Coaching. So our instructional design coaches have worked tremendously in all of our buildings to get our teachers through Apple Coaching. And the bottom example is a prototype that came from a science classroom where students can track their own data based upon standards and track how they're doing over time. And it is a program that they created using the iPad and the apps within iPad, and each student has access to their growth measures on an ongoing basis. And the top two are then examples of our win time. On Thursdays, we have a 90-minute time where students are on team in their core assigned classes. They attend there, and they can go to 2 different sessions. So the examples that you see here are sessions that our teachers meet weekly and really dig into the professional learning teaming model and really assess data and design these sessions accordingly based on needs of all students. So is it reteaching? Is it reassessing? Is it extension? And these are really good examples up here of what that looks like at work. And then students then travel, and they can do it. They actually travel between their sessions and make it to where they need to go accordingly. And they even get some outdoor time. And we've had the 8th graders have that outdoor time that backs up to lunch to help them understand what a power lunch will look like the following year. So to try to build their stamina of lunch backed up to maybe some more free social time and debrief. So we found that to be amazing as well. That is all for Sperreng this evening. Any questions?
I have a question that's really for all 3 of you. I was saving it. So one of the things that I noticed in looking at these slides was the area of concern seems to be more self-management, goal setting, which isn't really surprising for teenagers. But I'm also thinking about that in conjunction with how we don't have as many built-in deadlines for them anymore, with homework assignments being a little less due at this date, and they get to retake tests. And I'm wondering if we're going to change the way that we're assessing homework and tests. Is that maybe related to them not all of a sudden being able to structure themselves anymore? Do we need to teach new structural skills when we're taking away the structure that we've given them in the past, like when I was a kid?
I can speak to that one a little on a sixth grade level for sure. I know that has come up several times on how could we use the Canvas management system that we have in conjunction with something that's a little bit more tangible. So for years, we had paper copies of, let's say, planners, right? And it was very, you could pull it out of your backpack and you could look at it. It was very visual. And how do we create that system with a to-do list from Canvas and then meld that very nicely with our win time? So if you come to a win time, I can kind of show you what that looks like on a Monday morning, at least for Sperreng, where it is more of that executive functioning. We have the e-note, they read it, from cover to cover, but then they also have those dates in there, and then they're creating their own systems. So for us, that definitely is a goal next year to look at as well. And in fact, Dr. Schrottman might be able to talk too, but we have gotten feedback from our teachers that sixth grade would like sixth grade flyer times for that very reason.
That is one of the reasons we have sixth grade exclusive flyer times with some of our students, or with all of our students in sixth grade, trying to create an opportunity for self-management, as you had said, is becoming a little more difficult with assignments specifically. But we've also worked with students during flex time with how do I plan for studying for tests, and how do I plan for long-term assignments, and trying to help them. And we had actually had some discussion about, I know some of the teachers still prefer to utilize paper planners or some level of physical copy of things. And so that has been some of the conversations. And this came up, I had some students come to me too as well. They frequently would come to me during flyer time and ask about some things and advocate for things. And they have even noticed that they've been frustrated by the lack of follow through of some fellow students and peers. And so how can they help, and how can, as a school, what can we do to help everyone realize the importance of it? Because as they stated, and as we know, you're going to move out into a world in some cases where you're going to still have deadlines and have to follow through and all of those kind of things. And, even as we move into post-secondary education, that's going to be a requirement and expectation. So we have had some preliminary conversations about what are we going to do moving into next year for that.
And just quickly at the high school, I would say some of that feedback that we're getting, to me at least, based on my observation, and this is probably not just as a principal, but also as a dad of two high schoolers, so I get to see it a little more up close, that I think a lot of the practices that we're putting in regarding homework and grading, I don't think it's maybe changing how kids have to organize, but I don't think it's necessarily, I think they have to manage just differently. Otherwise, they find themselves very much underwater. And so I think it's a new way of organization. When I look at that data, my immediate reaction is I think that is still a little bit of a ripple coming out of COVID, that kids really had a lot of that turned upside down on its head. And so to me, it's more a reflection of that. It's also, at the high school, a reflection, I think, of the opportunity that AVID gives us, because AVID is specifically aimed at addressing some of these types of issues, organization, and those skills that we know are going to help kids when they get to college. And if, while we only have about 50 students who will be taking that AVID program next year, the ideal would be that ultimately from that, those become practices that are adopted throughout the building, even outside of AVID. So we look at that really as an opportunity to hopefully address some of those concerns that students are identifying.
So I would just say this, my experience as a high school principal ages ago, even when we were very traditional, we would give a thing called the Gallup Hope Survey. It was similar to this. This was 10 years, 12 years ago, and time management was on there. So I think but to Eric's point, it's a different way of time management. I think, yes, deadlines have to be there, and becomes a certain point where, yes, you have to meet that, but the emphasis about what does the grade reflect should reflect learning, and that's kind of what we're moving to. But why we find, if you look at our success skills, work ethic and integrity is a top priority. So how do we go about teaching that skill? And hopefully we'll see those numbers, go up, because we've gotten different strategies to do that, because that is extremely important, work ethic and responsibility. 100%, but we want the grades to reflect learning, so.
I just want to say, I see your highlighted success skills also, so.
Yes,
don't
I
have
had
to
the
give all
pinwheel
credit.
too. Yeah.
All right, if there aren't any more questions for our secondary principals, we're going to do a quick set change. We have our first group of elementary principals who are going to come up to the tables. Thank you all. Since it would have been a little awkward for Lauren to introduce Dr. Takesha Parker, I will take the time to do so. So we'll start our elementary learning reports with Dr. Takesha Parker, principal of Sappington Elementary.
Good evening. I am extremely excited to highlight all of the great things occurring at Sappington with our Sappington staff and our Sappington students. Next slide, please. This year, we were extremely intentional about having a reset around our core values at Sappington. So as an entire staff, that includes special school district, our interventionists, our classroom teachers, and we were very fortunate to have 2 full-time counselors this year. We decided to work as a staff to review our common language and our common goals. I've spoken to you for the past couple of years about our zones of regulation being implemented school-wide. That still continues. I would like to highlight a bulletin board that 2 of our special school district teachers change monthly, and it's in a high-traffic area. So it's to ensure that our students understand those zones of regulation, the language around it, and how it's important to Sappington as a whole. We have continued with Book of the Month. So every month, every teacher within our building receives a different book around a different theme and a different skill. We have teachers representing general education, special education, related arts, which is art, music, PE, design lab, and we also include our library, and reading interventionists who are involved with selecting our books of the month and highlighting the themes and sending activities to all of our teachers. And that transition to being able to implement buddy classrooms, bringing that back this school year. So that's where a primary teacher and an intermediate teacher, they get together monthly and they work on activities, and they also includes our Book of the Month. I will say, having our 2 full-time counselors this year has made a great impact on our students having access to counselors, having the appropriate resources frequently to address their social emotional learning. If you look at the bottom left picture, again, we decided to have a reset around our core values. At Sappington, that's our 4 pillars of character. Our building leadership team over the summer during our retreat, we decided to look at our 4 pillars of character, reword the definitions in student-friendly language, and design activities for all of our teachers to implement when we returned in August. This included book selections or book recommendations, as well as videos and student-friendly activities. If you look at the picture on the bottom right, you will see play workshop being implemented. Play is extremely important at Sappington, especially in our primary grades. And that also addresses the social emotional learning components within our students to be able to use their words and be able to work with one another. Next slide, please. The 4 C's are naturally integrated into our MySci units. Students are involved in hands-on science experiments where they're working with groups or partners, and they're working on their thinking skills, their collaboration skills, coming up with answers and solutions and presenting it to the class. I included 2 pictures with MySci lessons that involved testing soil and also being erosion problem solvers. So at Sappington, we love to call our students problem solvers. And I will also say problem finders, because I'm extremely passionate about our students being the future leaders of our society. In our primary grades, 4Cs are naturally implemented as well. You will see a kindergarten class using their devices one-to-one, and they're going around the building trying to identify either sight words or letter recognition. And they're working in groups, they're taking pictures, and then they return to class to present to each other. If you look at the far right picture, you will see a student in kindergarten who is explaining a math word problem. And I believe in her video, she said, if I have 3 apples and 3 lemons, I have 6 pieces of fruit. And she was really excited to present that to her classmates. Our design lab class, which is a part of our related arts, our 5th grade students designed arcade games. So they went through the engineering process where they tested, they presented, and they gave the opportunity for our entire student population to test out all of the arcade games that they created. We are extremely excited to bring back our video morning announcements, which is all student-led. They write their script, they do the research with weather, lunch, they come up with, they research the special days, they don't wait for me to arrive for morning arrival, they know their time, so I missed it this morning, and they let me know I did not have good time management skills. So I'm extremely proud of our student leaders. They make me extremely proud, and they're currently accepting applications for 4th grade interns to take over for next school year. Next slide, please. This year with our MTSS process, which is multi-tiered systems of support, we have meetings every 6 weeks, and it's a problem-solving meeting that have often involved our general education teachers meeting with a team of interventionists. This school year, because of the way our schedule worked, I was extremely excited to have our related arts teachers, so art, music, PE, library, design lab. They were involved in the meetings, and this was something very unfamiliar to them. And I went to them and I said, the past few years, you have been doing a great job of talking about students because you share all of our Sappington students and discussing what works within your setting and collaborating around actions that you can do to improve our student success. And so they didn't know about our MTSS meetings, so this was an opportunity for them to come in and further the problem-solving discussion, and it was a nice opportunity to hear their voices as teachers and the feedback that I received. It was a great opportunity for them to have a sense of belonging and connecting with teachers that they oftentimes would not have the time or know the format of the MTS process. Next slide, please. Personalized learning, if you look in the upper left, that is our book tasting. So our fabulous library media specialist this year, she not only provided opportunities where she could recommend books based on student interests, but she also has opportunities for students to recommend books. And this was an opportunity for our students to have voice and choice of books that are included in our library, and that's available for them to read. So if you're not familiar with the book tasting process, they read a little snippet, they rotate around the chairs at the tables, and then they make choices of books of interest that they would like to read. If you look at the bottom pictures, that is our art class, and our students are involved in choice art. So they are able to design projects using an art method of their choice, whether it's painting, clay, different things like that. They have a notebook and they create a goal and plan, and they meet with the art teacher and discuss their plan, and then they carry it out and they finish their project by a designated deadline. If you look at the middle picture, My instructional coach and myself, we met with Dr. Jill Lawson on how to make our data meetings more effective. And so she worked with us on some different strategies, and we met with our grade level teachers. And at Sappington, we're all about the growth goals. So our teachers came to us and they presented their growth data, where they talked about what they discussed as a team, the action plans and the solutions based on individualized student data, and forming those small groups to meet the students' needs. If you look at the pictures on the right, you will see an example of flyer time with our third grade team, and they mix their students up after they look at the data and decide those intentional, individualized needs of the students based on the priority standards, and they work together and collaborate to decide which instructional strategies will best meet the needs of those students. And we've seen great progress with not only collaboration, but our students' growth. And I will say that we're very intentional about celebrating the students and celebrating the teachers. I believe that is it. Next slide. That is it. Again, I will say, please, if you have time, please come to Sappington. We would love to show you more. We have our students who lead tours. They will be excited to show you all of the great things that they have had a voice in, making some changes around Sappington and seeing different designs around the building and just having that student-led atmosphere. Thank you. I'm excited to introduce Dr. Christina Phillips, Principal, Long Elementary School.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much to the Board of Education for giving me the privilege and opportunity to speak with you tonight of the wonderful things that are happening at Long Elementary. I'm extremely proud to share what we've done this year and the hard work of both our Long leaders and our teachers. Next slide, please. First, I want to talk to you about the work in social emotional learning that we've done this year. The items that I'm going to be highlighting this evening are focused on the Lindbergh life skills of integrity and inclusiveness. So please direct your attention to the bottom 3 pictures. These are examples of classroom meetings. Classroom meetings and check-ins have always been a part of our culture at Long, and we are using the district-adopted Second Steps program. In addition to that, many of our teachers have been trained in restorative circles. If you walk into a first grade classroom, which you see there on the left, you'll see the students sitting in a circle. There's a talking piece involved, and they are answering a question and all getting to share their opinions on whatever the prompt is for that day. Using a circle and a talking piece in the guided questions are an excellent way to build community, but it's also something, once established, that our teachers in classrooms can use when there's a problem in the classroom or a problem they need to solve. A teacher can call a class circle, or a student can. So even our youngest learners really benefit from that circle conversation that happens in all grade levels. In addition to respecting the viewpoints of students within our schools, we also want Long students to experience cultural diversity beyond our classroom walls. One way we facilitated this is with our cultural night, which you'll see in the top yellow picture. We were so excited to bring this event back to Long students and families this year. This is a well-attended event and gave all families the opportunities to try new foods, learn games, sing songs, and dance, and the very popular henna artist that had a very long line that evening. The top yellow picture highlights that one of our multilingual families there and their booth on origami. It was wonderful to have families volunteer to share things of their culture and get to have other students participate in it. It was amazing to see students in our school be given the opportunity to share and celebrate these practices from other cultures. The final picture is from our kindness walk on Unity Day. We always encourage our Long leaders to show integrity and do the right thing when no one is looking, but spreading kindness and celebrating unity during National Bullying Prevention Week is one small way that we encourage this. And next year, if you come to Crestwood Park, it's a really good time, so you're all invited. Next slide, please. My next slide highlights the work students and staff have done around the 4 C's and the Lindbergh life skills of critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and communication. The top picture that you see outlined in green is of a professional learning community. This is 5th grade, and they have participated in doing math walkthroughs of the grade levels below them. And the purpose of this was to look at best practices that are happening in other grade levels and then be able to relate these to the math priority standards that they were currently working on. So they came together using a protocol called a consensus placemat, where they were able to write their own ideas and then come together and see what commonalities they were able to find. All grade levels at our school were able to participate on these vertical math team walks, and it was a great learning experience for everyone. The bottom left pillow is of a 5th grade student documenting her art as part of her online portfolio. Students in Mrs. Stevens' art class not only complete art projects, but write artist statements that reflect on each of their pieces. These travel with them K through 5, and it's a complete portfolio for them when they leave elementary school. If you look at the middle green picture, you'll see a 3rd grade math class. Students are circulating in the classroom and engaging in math talk with peers. In this particular situation, students are talking about equivalent fractions, and they are talking about the different strategies that they were using. Our math curriculum, iReady, provides a lot of opportunities for students to have dialogue with each other about their thinking. If you ever walk into a math class, be prepared to stand up, and pair up, and make sure that you have a good explanation for them when they ask you. The final picture there in yellow is of our cardboard arcade as part of our design lab class. We are so excited. This is our first year having design lab, and it's been a phenomenal addition to our related arts rotations. In this class, students were given the opportunity to team up, design, evaluate, and build a cardboard arcade game. Then we invited families in to experience these games. The highlight for me was when one parent came up to me and said, "It's design lab, and they built a whole game, and they didn't use their iPad at all. It was just cardboard." So I think that really debunked the myth that in design lab, all you do is play on an iPad. You can actually do a lot of creative things in the design process without technology. So this was a definite highlight for both our parents and our students. Next slide, please. Thanks. The final topic I want to talk about today is personalized learning. I want to highlight the experiences of Long students that fall under the Lindbergh Life Success Skills of Identity and Agency. At Long, we strive to have students set goals and persevere to achieve them. The bottom picture in yellow is of a 2nd grade student and his goal sheet. This sheet is very simple. It uses Post-its to identify what reading strategy he is using. The goals are tied directly to a priority standard that he is currently working on. This very easily identifies the goal, his progress, and what his next steps are. He's able to articulate the goal to you and tell you how he is working to reach them. And you can tell he's pretty proud of his goals. Students are able to identify their goals and then the steps they need to reach them and move on. The top black chart is a snapshot of an iReady data comparing fall and winter data on the iReady assessment. Students and teachers are able to use this data and look at progress, identify strengths and areas for growth. Teachers can dig deeper with specific students and look at different math standards such as number sense or geometry. As a group, we use this data in our MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support group, and we use this to identify areas that may need additional intervention in certain areas. We are very thankful for the addition of the math interventionist position this year, as we use this data to form the flexible groups that the math interventionist was able to work with in grades K1 and 2. The Tier 3 support that the math intervention was able to provide was then able to be reflected, and we were able to see growth as the students took their winter assessment. So that was very exciting. Finally, the middle green picture is what happens when you meet your goals. So this year with My Path, students were very excited to attempt to reach 1,000 MyPath lessons in the iReady program in December. They exceeded their goal. They reached 3,500 lessons in the month of December with snow days. And they got to pie Dr. Mack and I in the face at every lunch 6 times. So I know, it was wonderful. And Beth Johnson sent people over to take pictures all day. So it was actually, I still have kindergartners come up like, do you remember when we pied you in the face? I'm like, I do. I remember. But meeting your goals needs to be celebrated, and we like to celebrate all victories at Long. So, I mean, he was pretty into it. And it was a random pick. So we had a wheel, got to pick who was great. All right, so at this time, if there are no questions, it's my honor and privilege to slide into that, to introduce Mr. DeAndre Thomas.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Green's good? Okay. It turns green at the top. I was looking for like a green something somewhere else. I'm new at this. So good evening, everyone. My name is DeAndre Thomas, and I am the building principal at Kennerly Elementary School, and I am excited to share some incredible insight and opportunities that our students and staff at Kennerly had a chance to be a part of for this school year. Next slide, please. Top left picture is what we're going to talk about. So we are always excited for an opportunity to brag on our students and staff. This year at our November district board meeting, we had a chance to recognize 2 amazing students and 1 exceptional staff member. The 2 students that we had an opportunity to recognize are hardworking and dedicated. We are so proud of their accomplishments in and outside of the classroom. We also would like to highlight our talented SSD staff member for going above and beyond and supporting our students' needs each and every day. I would like to point out that there are 4 other teachers in that photo who played an integral part in the 2 students' growth and development, and they are extremely proud of those 2 wonderful students as well. Next picture for the top right, green. So I have to share a story with you. This year, Mrs. Sontag, now Mrs. Hufker, got married over winter break, and she made such a connection with her class that she invited all of her kindergarten students to her wedding ceremony. Just as, sorry, let me find my spot, because this is a funny story. There we go, okay. Just as she made, this school year, Mrs. Sontag, now Mrs. Hufker, got married over winter break, and she had made such a connection with her class that she invited all of her kindergarten students. Just about all of her students were there. Just as Mrs. Hufker entered and walked down the aisle with her father to be married, one of Mrs. Hufker's students said loudly, "She looks just like a princess." You can imagine the smiles, giggles, and laughter of the family and friends that filled the room. And as Mrs. Hufker and her newly married husband walked down the aisle for their recessional, one of her kindergarten students said out loud, "I love you, Miss Sontag," which of course brought down the house, and everyone enjoyed that moment. Picture bottom right. Lastly, Unity Day is a day when across the district we celebrate our differences, diversity. We come together as one, inclusion, and we recognize that each person has a different set of circumstances, and allocations are made for equal outcomes, equity. We celebrate this day by coming together and learning that no matter who we are, where we come from, or what our backgrounds are, we are united as one. We read books together about integrity and unity. We gather together as friends, and we enjoy each other's company. The really cool thing about the picture with our students signing their Unity Pledge is that there are more students signing around the corner, up the hall, down the stairs. It is a time when, on this specific day, our students and staff are united as one, and it is a remarkable experience. We need more days like that. Next slide, please. The 4 C's, communication, creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, is where our students and staff excel. So we're going to talk about the picture that's the 2 bottom pictures, 5th grade students and parents. This year, our 5th grade students had an assignment where they had to use what they've learned from plants and natural resources to create a sustainable farm. Their goal was to design a farm that would feed a large amount of people, yet harm the environment as little as possible. Students then had to create a presentation that explained the location of their farm, the region, the climate of the location, explained the energy flow, how their farm was sustainable, and lastly, students had to explain how to reuse or recycle the waste products created from their farm. Fifth grade parents were then invited to be part of the panel that provided feedback to the group's projects. This was a great community learning experience. We're now going to talk about the blue picture at the top. In Design Lab, our first graders were challenged and asked to explore how shapes affect the amount of weight a column could hold or support. Our first grade students were put into groups, and each group had to build a structure that could hold the most weight possible. Each first grade group structure had to be at least 20 centimeters tall, and the only materials that were provided was 10 sheets of paper and 1 meter of tape. These types of challenges require students to work collaboratively, test and revise, and use their creative thinking skills. Next slide, please. Maybe go back. Nope, next slide. Sorry, I'm sorry. Thank you, Colin. Sorry about that. Okay, I was just making sure I was looking at what I was reading. So, studies have shown that third grade is a pivotal year for literacy. We are excited to share that for the fall FastBridge assessment, 87% of our third graders were reading at or above the benchmark for CBM reading. We're also very excited to share that for the winter FastBridge reading, 94% of our third graders were reading at or above the grade level for CBM reading. Now, we're excited and also a little nervous to see what the spring FastBridge reading benchmarks percentage will be. Some of the meaningful indicators that contributed to our third grade success was that our third grade teachers worked closely with our literacy teacher assistants in small groups. Our third grade teachers unwrapped reading standards and working backwards to develop engaging and rigorous lessons. And then lastly, our third grade teachers strategically creating exit tickets toward desired outcomes. Big kudos to our Kennerly teachers for always pushing the envelope and doing what's best for our students. Another data point I'd like to share is our fifth grade NWA reading percentile. For the fall, 89% of our fifth grade students were reading at or above the benchmark. And for the winter, our fifth grade students are holding steady at 85% reading at or above the benchmark. Our teachers continue to work hard, said before, to prepare and develop the needed skills so that our students can and will be successful. We are confident that our fifth grade students' academic measures will continue to grow. Next slide, please. Oh, nope, go back, sorry. There we go, we'll stick there, sorry, Pat. In February, the Lindbergh School District provided an opportunity for 5 administrators to attend a professional learning community summit. A professional learning community is the vehicle that drives high-quality instruction. A PLC, or professional learning community, is an ongoing process where teachers work collaboratively in recurring cycles of a collection of inquiry to determine how we respond to deficiencies. Teachers then develop a plan and take action, something that we learned at the conference, to increase learning for all students. A direct quote from one of our presenters, Louis Cruz. I'm excited to take this information that I've learned at that conference and share it with our school community to continue to build high-functional instructional teams that challenge students' thinking. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to share some insights for Kennerly Elementary for the 2023 school year, and I am excited to introduce Dr. Pat Schoenekes, principal of Dressel Elementary School.
Green means good. If it goes red, I've been cut off. I've been my time limit. All right, so good evening. I'm thrilled to be here tonight to represent the students and staff at Dressel and just share some of the impactful and exciting work from this school year. So I'm going to start at the bottom left. After 6 years, Dressel was able to host our first ever cultural night. And this night was designed by our 2 ML teacher, our multilingual teachers, in hopes of being able to share about the different cultures that are there at Dressel. And so this included over 25 families who had the opportunity to really showcase their culture to our community. We also had some outside performances come. It was great to get people down on the floor and learn some dance moves. It was also a little embarrassing at times too, but learning about the cultural dance and why they do that. Also, their cultural food was brought in and shared amongst everybody. And I think this was just so powerful to see like our kids and our families so proud of who they are and be able to share that with other classmates, other friends, and people that might not recognize that about them. So just a really powerful night for our students. All right, if you look at the top picture, that's a picture of a morning circle in second grade. And you can't see, but in the very back, there's 2 older students in there. And this past year, a small group of teachers and I participated in EJACE learning. So EJACE is equity and justice around character education. And so one of our big main compass goals this year was around social motion and that idea of belonging. And so our EJACE leader, along with Dr. Shariah Mason, provided professional learning to 25 fifth grade students, and they learned about what restorative circles were and how to implement them. And so after having that professional learning, they observed and participated in circles around our school, and that is a picture of that. And most recently, Dressel hosted the St. Louis EJACE cohort, and they started the learning for the adults with an opening circle. So a big shout out to those kids to stand up in front of adults and lead a circle about self-care. Just tapping into the adult world of what self-care might look like and trying to carry that conversation was a great job. But our goal in this is for students to serve as that linchpin around Dressel, to celebrate, to problem solve, and teach students around Dressel different things through restorative practices. And then at the bottom, that's a book most recently I just read in March. And we partnered with our absolutely amazing PTO. I'm sure you've heard amazing stories about us. We have the best PTO around, no doubt. And they purchased a book for every teacher, included our related arts teacher, including our special ed teachers, for every month of the year. And so it was just a way we wanted to help connect our students in our school around a particular topic. So some of the topics we covered were cultural awareness, collaboration, empathy, and belonging. We just hope to continue on that path and bring in our families as we look at Book a Month. Colin, next one. All right, 4 C's: collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and communication. So this is probably by far one of the best pictures I've ever shared at one of these. And this is a first grade student. Her name is Darren. And Darren wanted to share about who she was and her journey with cerebral palsy. And so she had to collaborate with her teacher and then create a slideshow on that included videos and pictures and just her story of her journey. And then she got up and presented and talked to her classmates about her story. And I'm gonna tell you what, it was an awesome job, and it was the cutest thing you'd ever seen in your entire life. So just a big shout out to somebody who, she doesn't lack a lot of confidence, I will say that. So it was just great. But it was just an awesome moment for her to be able to do that, but then seeing how she brought in the 4 C's to really share her story. I want to jump over to the right there, where you see a bunch of students stand there. So at the beginning of the year, we held a school-wide Zoom with an artist out of Atlanta. But before we met with him on Zoom, every classroom read the book Hey Wall. And this is a book about a student who uses a wall to connect their community through art. And so students created this piece of artwork, and towards the end of it, he had them cut out a small square of it, which was pretty hard for some kids to kind of ruin their artwork. But later that day, they took that piece of artwork and hung it on Dressel's wall. Again, just another way to connect our school. So an awesome activity. So if you're by Dressel at some point and you're all invited to come by, stop by the library, you're going to see it up there as well. And then towards, at the bottom there, that students, our fifth grade students were working on an informational writing piece during Black History Month. And so they had to choose an influential African-American and research their impact. And so at the culmination, they got to kind of share out different parts of their learning or any way they wanted to. And so it's hard to tell from that picture, but there are some hand-painted canvases up there from our kids. There are just some pictures or some posters, but there are also some QR codes. So if you were to scan those, a student's voice would come up and highlight those impactful moments of those African Americans. Next, Colin. All right, so personalized learning, something that you will see every day walking into any of the classrooms around Dressel. So I'm going to start again in the top left, and this is the superhero project out of our art classroom. So over the last several months, our fourth grade students have been learning a lot about art and techniques and ideas. And so this was an opportunity for them to bring those kind of ideas together in any way that they wanted to. Some that they wanted to explore more, some that they were good at, some they wanted to just try harder. And so students had to create a logo for their superhero. They had to write a paragraph. Yes, they had to write a paragraph in art class about their superhero. And then the last thing they're working on is building and creating a sculpture of their superhero. So a lot of really awesome ideas coming out of art class. The next is My Sabers, and so as Dr. Sparks had talked about at the beginning, this was a universal SEL screener for students at Dressel and I believe all around the elementaries in Lindbergh. And so our counselors, after students and teachers worked on this, our counselors and teachers met as a professional learning community to look at the data, to look at patterns, and ultimately develop some plans based on some of this data. And so out of this, our 2.5 counselors, which again, thank you, this halftime counselor that Kennerly and us shares has made a ton of difference in how we approach things like this, have created very targeted groups that are focusing on skills that kids might be lacking. And just the Sabers is just another tool for us to be able to help make sure we are reaching all of our students in all areas. And then lastly, that picture in yellow is our Dressel Learning Lab. So Dressel Learning Lab, or AKA staff meeting, okay? We just have a fancy name for them. And we've tried this year to really make sure we provided some teacher-led professional learning. So teachers will say, hey, this is a topic that I want to discuss with people, or I have questions about. And this is a picture of mixed grade level teachers, some specialists. I think Dr. Sparks might even be somewhere in that. From the beginning of the year, where this group of teachers was talking about standards-based instruction and just talking about ways to track data, what data to track. And so it was just a good way for them to get together and bounce ideas off. Some of the other things, there's our ROT led a session on handwriting. We had some Apple tips and tricks, and then I think we've had restorative conversation. So that sums up Dressel. Once again, I always enjoy sharing about the wonderful things going on at Dressel, and I would love if you have any questions, I'm open to them.
For Pat or any of the 4 leaders up there, because I noticed they kind of just slid right over that questions part.
Respecting the time.
Thank you for being so considerate.
I don't have any questions, but before we lose everyone in here. Good job, everyone. I love it. I love seeing all the kids and the social emotional piece, but this goes to everybody. I was thinking of this as I'm knocking on doors, but I've heard several of you say, we'd love for you to come see us. So I wrote down, we have 11 newsletters to sort through, and as Dr. Boger said, they're very short and concise as I scroll. Yeah. If there would be a way that if you're having something that you could let Andrea know, and she might be able to put that in our packet, and maybe something once in the fall, once in the spring, something like this, and those of us who might be able to attend, that we could do that might be helpful. And I know Kennerly's in my back door, but with the secure doors, it's intimidating to go inside. But thank you to all of you.
One comment, I've heard from a lot of you that your teachers are collaborating to bring personalized learning to the students. And I just wanted to point out that I think that's almost one of the best ways for the students to learn the 4 C's, including collaboration, because what they see modeled is what they're going to remember the most. So I think really great job on bringing, not having these are my kids, this is my kids, these are my kids, these are our kids. And I think that's the best way to get that through to the students. So thank you for doing that.
All right, thank you. Next set change for our final group of elementary, gifted, and early childhood. I would like you to note that we are at a healthy pace. We are going to finish on time, or maybe early. We'll see. We'll see how long Charlene goes. Teasing Charlene. We'll put you next year. All right, we are going to start this last section with Kit Norton, principal of Crestwood Elementary School.
Mike, it's on. All right. Good evening, everybody. And I was going to say, thank you, Dr. Shinakase. When we rehearsed, he was ahead of me, but now I'll stick to my notes. I'm a preacher's kid, so if you let me speak extemporaneously, we'd be here all night and we'd throw you off. So I'm going to stick to my notes. I want to thank the Board of Education for the opportunity to share the great things that are happening for our students and our school community at Crestwood this year. Our staff is honored to serve such an incredible group of students and their families, as am I. So our first slide, it takes a look at social emotional learning. The items we focused on centered around Lindbergh life success skills of empathy, respect, and relationships. The top left image is one of our social skills group working with both of our school counselors. The lesson here was on social awareness, making friendship pizza with the qualities of a good friend as ingredients. The top middle image shows our counselor student helpers putting on a puppet show with Mrs. Long, our counselor, about friendship for the kindergarten social skills group. And this year, many of our intermediate classrooms incorporated an activity in their class meetings using an app called Freeform, seen at the top right. This was an app and a strategy learned by our staff at the Apple training sessions provided by the school district under the coordination of Colin Davitt, Blended Learning Specialist, and I think also known as Director of Imagination and Vision. Is that correct, Colin? All right. Says it on your email, so. In this activity, the teacher randomly draws names, and each student is assigned another student for them to spy on for the day. Each smaller square in this image would normally have the student's name on them on the display screen. We took them out. But throughout the day, each student accesses the document through the QR code in the center of the image, and then they add positive affirmations to it as they keep watch for the student peer doing great things that they're spying on. At the end of the day, the classroom celebrates all of the amazing things that were noticed. This activity, it helps students experience and put into practice self-awareness skills, self-management, social awareness, and also relationship skills. And on our bottom left image, this is from our trimester 2 school-wide celebration day. I'll go back in time a little bit. So back in the first trimester of the year here at Crestwood, we held a school-wide assembly, and it recognized a few students, a certain few students in each classroom that were demonstrating curiosity, caring, kindness, and responsibility. With the primary goal of continually building a culture of belonging, we switched things up at the end of trimester 2 by providing every student in the school with a lanyard and a name badge for the day. You can see the young lady there holding on to her name badge. Every staff person, that included teachers, custodians, building assistants, and our lunchroom staff, they were all given strips of small round stickers that said things like, I am creative, I am kind, I am curious, I am honest, and so on. Our goal as a full staff community for that day was to ensure that every single student in our care received a one-to-one moment with an adult that provided them with an affirmation sticker. It was more than just handing a child a sticker. It was all about sharing a personal moment with a caring adult. At the end of the day, We celebrated with a 15-minute grade level dance party for each grade level, or we also had board game stations offered in the cafenasium. Every child was seen, Gymacafetorium.
It's going away, hopefully.
It's going away. We also call it Gymacafetorium. Every child was seen, every child was celebrated to support the edification of our school-wide community. It was an awesome day. The middle picture at the bottom represents all of our school-wide leadership programs for our students. This particular student is a bus leader, so he's wearing that umbrella on his hat, probably on a rainy day. And we have leadership roles ranging from social media leaders, counselor leaders, to kindergarten cafe leaders, our fifth graders that help our kindergartners go back to their classroom for recess. Students apply for these leadership roles and are guided by our counseling team. With our success skills focused on relationships, the final picture at the bottom right is our fifth grade game club organized by a student as a weekly way to connect with their friends. And our next slide, it focuses on the 4 C's. Crestwood Elementary is in its 3rd year of an ongoing journey towards being awarded the title of a Missouri Green School. Missouri Green Schools is a statewide recognition program that supports schools in taking a systems-based approach to identify and advance sustainability practices throughout their campuses. So this project-based program is also called Green Schools Quest Initiative. So our school began the quest a little over 3 years ago when our environmental club, led by a group of students, if you were on the board at that time, they may have come here presenting, they conducted a sustainability audit in our school cafeteria. Students at that time were advocating for the use of machine washable trays and silverware, which resulted in a district commitment to shift towards the elimination of styrofoam trays and plasticware in the cafeteria. And why I say this is the launch of the Green Schools Quest at Crestwood has led to a number of collaborative learning opportunities for our students in other areas of our school. So for example, the top 2 pictures in this slide are examples of Crestwood's work this year to merge the design thinking process with our garden program. So a new garden there was just installed over the last summer, and we can see students out there working in it in that picture. Students there are learning about where food comes from, as well as learning the importance of being in nature every day. Deeper than that, our multilingual learner teacher, Beth Bridwell, and our design lab teacher, Ian Fairley, they co-teach throughout the year to deliver students with hands-on design thinking curriculum outside in our garden. These garden lessons are provided, the basis of them provided from our partnership with an organization called Seed STL. And then our co-teaching team enhances those lessons based on the principles of the design process. Crestwood's sustainability and gardening initiatives, along with the engineering design lab opportunities, have really made our garden one of the most favorite and popular places in our school to visit. Crestwood was fortunate to be able to partner with the St. Louis County Recycling Project this year. So we're looking at the bottom left image. The County Recycling Project presented collaborative problem-solving opportunities for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. In this picture, you can see students had to work together to figure out how to develop a structure that could hold a certain amount of water with a limited amount of materials. This learning experience demonstrated the importance of recycling and sustainability, which directly connects to Crestwood's ongoing school-wide Green Schools Quest initiative. And our bottom middle image, so this is in the classroom now. Our 4th graders worked with partners to research and learn about the 13 colonies. They then designed a poster using sketchnoting to share their new knowledge before presenting it to their peers. And then our bottom right image, the entire 4th grade developed a Black History Wax Museum where students collaborated, researched, and presented an exhibit of Black Americans who've shaped our history. These students put into practice the essential skills necessary to creatively and thoughtfully share their learning with our entire school and also the wider community. Our next and final slide is about personalized learning. At Crestwood, we aim for our students to be self-directed learners in a community that encourages them to explore interests, ask questions, and assess their own learning. So in the top left image, it's an example of students providing reflective feedback on their own learning. The names have been removed on that image up there, but our 2nd grade team, they work during their professional learning community time to place students on flex grouping Tier 2 intervention schedules. However, before those placements occur, our teacher team meets individually with each second grader in their classroom to discuss which math standards they might need more help with. That student and teacher conversation, supported by data, helps to identify what areas of instruction they may most need attention. The other 3 slides are each examples of students on different grade levels looking at their own data to identify goals and outline the process to reach those goals. So the top right picture shows a fifth grade student setting her district-wide assessment, her spring NWEA goals. The bottom left image has one of our 4th grade students showing her goal folder work, so like multiplication mastery bars, iReady math assessment goal sheets, and also NWEA reading and math goals. And then finally, the bottom right image, it shows one of our students through individualized support, charting his math goals and celebrating the success of meeting his goal. The flexibility that personalized learning practices bring our students is empowering and results in a more relevant learning environment for everyone in our care. And before I pass this on to Mr. Meckel here, I wanted to thank the board in this season of transition at Crestwood. I really appreciate the support from so many individuals in this room. Also, of note tonight, Dr. Suzanne Bright is in attendance. She's our interim assistant principal. She was formerly the Kennerly elementary principal some years ago, not too many years ago. But without her, she jumped right in and has been an integral part of a great transition at Crestwood. So thank you to the board and our leadership. And now, it's my honor to introduce Mr. Brian Meckel, Concord principal.
Did anybody else notice that power move when he took those glasses off? Man, possessed the audience. As Kit said, my name is Brian Meckel. I have the great honor of being at Concord this year as their brand new principal. I think I can drop the brand new just a few short weeks. It's definitely been a year of firsts, some celebrations, and countless learning opportunities, which I'm grateful for. To the board, I'm thankful you've given me the opportunity to speak about some great things happening around the building. So if you want to go to the next slide, please, Colin. So I numbered my slides. Directionally speaking, I thought it was just easier for me to work that way. So as I think about social emotional learning, Concord has a strong desire to create space where all students feel connected to our building, our hallway, and our classrooms. In these images, you'll see some of the ways we've created those connections. Spoiler alert, you'll notice that many of the highlights strongly align with the Lindbergh Life success skill of integrity and inclusiveness. So image number 1 highlights our Concord runway. As we work to recognize those students living out our core values, we call home to celebrate, and then students also get to sign the runway. Yep, you heard it, they get to sign the wall. And for your reference, our core values are accountability, integrity, inclusion, kindness, and empathy. Image number 2 shows student work and student artwork covering the walls and halls at Concord. This image shows how our front office is being taken over with masterful designs. There's really no rhyme or reason behind the art displays other than that kids always have an open invitation to show off their work in the office. Image 3 ties directly to classroom design. Our classrooms have calming corners that can be used by students. Our counselors work to equip our students with skills and strategies to help them self-regulate. We work to use common language and similar techniques across the building. Image number 4 shows our core values coming to life in a classroom setting. So staff and students work to understand and live out our core values. And in this classroom, students are given the opportunity to recognize peers, living out those core values in their classroom and around the building. Image 6 highlights classroom circles and class meetings. These gatherings are used to get all the voices into the space. These meetings can cover a variety of topics, and the classroom is a safe space to share thoughts, review routines, resolve conflict, and connect student voices and interests into the learning environment. The last image, and possibly my favorite image, just because the kids love looking at this, this is our Fly Together photo wall. That's kind of been a hashtag that's lived throughout Concord this school year. But this living mural highlights all the faces that make up Concord. As it stands, the board is currently full, so we have spilled onto, now we are just taping images on the wall. The students, they love seeing their faces. It's typically is the highlight. And then as a side note, there is it's not even soft. There's some real pressure to make sure that everyone's face is on there. The kids know. And I like that pressure. And it also serves as a great timeline it helps us connect all the way back to the first day of school. So we're going to go to the next slide. So this next slide dives into the components and activities connected to the 4 C's. Image number 1 shows our kindergarten and first grade students using the B-Bots to work on coding. As usual, our librarian, Mrs. Trosky, tied her lesson to literacy. In this case, she works to connect our students to the book Dolly 1.0. The Lindbergh life success skill of critical thinking and creativity definitely comes into play with this type of an experience. Image 2 and 5 highlight our 5th grade students and leadership roles, which connect with the Lindbergh Life's success skill of work ethic and effort. We worked with our 5th grade students to generate meaningful leadership jobs. What did they see fit for Concord? What did we need? Their voice was important. We wanted to make Concord a better place. The 5th grade teachers quickly learned that our students definitely had a desire to serve. To mention a few of these leadership roles around the building, we have the window washing crew, lost and found organizers, and our very own radio call-in contest, QCCI, Friday Trivia Questions. The winning class of the trivia question gets a 1-song dance party, and yes, the radio show hosts were very adamant that they should wear wigs. And I just happen to have a drawer of wigs in my closet, so it worked out. Image number 3 depicts the students proudly displaying their bridge tresses that were created during a design lab unit. The creativity and critical thinking that are on display daily in the lab have been a favorite part of learning for our students. Image 4 connects with the Lindbergh Life success skill of communication and collaboration. Students working collaboratively in one of our learning spaces is a very common practice at Concord. Students at all grade levels are invited to work in pairs and small groups. These moments encourage students to problem solve, share ideas, and extend each other's learning. The final slide, please, Colin, thank you, sir. So my final topic covers personalized learning. And at Concord, we continue to work and develop systems where both teachers and students are using data and goal setting to increase success. Image number 1, this image shows a student goal setting binder. Students are given the opportunity to see how they are performing and set goals for where they want to be. These conversations happen in the classroom, and the teachers and students talk about manageable goals and actionable steps that can take place to reach that goal. Students track their own progress, and that helps create that ownership. Image 2 relates to data and meeting student needs. Teachers dig deep with specific students and look at different math strands, such as number sense. In addition to providing students an opportunity to see their growth, some students can also be supported by our math interventionists. This year, our math interventionist, Mrs. Schaefer, has been a wonderful addition. Image 3 connects nicely to the Lindbergh Life success skills of identity and agency. The photo displays how teachers and students work together to understand choices. We look to find learning opportunities in everything we do, and this think sheet displays how students can have accountability for their actions and work to find alternative solutions to problem solving and peers with conflicts. Some of the language that we like to use is the visual is, we want to keep our problems small, and how we react can help do that. So if we react big, our problems can become bigger. Image number 4 shows how students can be a leader in their communication with their family. We have a 3rd grade classroom leading the charge where students reflect weekly and share their week with their parents. The reflection includes what their learning and behavior goals were and how they did. Students also share a highlight about something that they learned for the week. So that does conclude my presentation. Thanks for letting me share a little bit about Concord. Are there any questions? That's the right answer. Appreciate that. All right, no, it's my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Tracy Bednarik-Humes and talk about our gifted education program.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meckel. So the gifted students, teachers, and families truly appreciate the school boards and the district's continued support of the LEAP and PEGS programs. We serve over 700 students in our programs. All right, next slide. So this year we have continued to build our SEL programming while also participating in district-wide SEL initiatives through the Lindbergh Life Success Skills. And here are some highlights. In elementary PEGS, the teachers have participated in a Kennerly initiative where students could earn time for a special activity with a teacher of their choice. Here you see Breakfast with Brown. Mrs. Brown invited her winners to a Starbucks party before school on their special day. This was such a great way for students and teachers to connect and build relationships. They've also made connections with other students through buddy activities throughout the year, building a sense of inclusiveness and belonging while also connecting with someone at a different grade level. To the right, you see an older and younger PEG student working together on a get-to-know-you activity that happened early in the year. On the lower left, you can see how students use critical thinking and collaboration to review rules in January and reestablish their classroom expectations for their classroom community. Giving students ownership for how they build their classroom community helps them feel like they belong and gives them a sense of agency. So their teachers didn't tell them the rules, they told their teachers what the rules should be. And the teachers pretty much agreed. We've also continued weekly support lessons and restorative circles with the gifted counselor to really dig into social emotional needs that are unique to gifted students, not pictured. Additionally, in Elementary Leap, we do a daily morning check-in with follow-up from our gifted counselor or from me. Many times the students self-assess and choose a strategy to help them get on track with their day without teacher intervention, and we follow up later to see how the strategy worked out. Our teachers also check these lists, and they have really helped us have a sense of our students' wellness needs, and we use it as a tool to connect and communicate with their schools, the students' home schools. On the lower left, you can see a compilation of students who checked in blue, so they can check in green, yellow, red, or blue. Blue's kind of feeling down, just not quite right. And this is not every day, this is over several days. Most of the time, we have most kids checking in green. But you can see the strategy that they plan to use and the reasoning behind their feelings. So one example that stands out is we have one student who decided they were going to use every single strategy available to them to get that morning started. And then another student who's coming to terms with the feelings that his mom is not going to get him a mini pig. And he's moving on from that. In middle school, the gifted counselor and teachers run restorative circles and embed SEL instruction in their lessons, specifically through goal setting and individual check-ins. All right, next slide. So in the gifted program, we are all about the 4 C's. Here are a few examples of the many ways we enrich learning through the 4 C's. So for critical thinking, you can see our 6th grade leapers curating their functional human body models in the upper left. So they invited parents and community members to come in and see their demonstrations. They demonstrated everything from how a pimple forms to how a food marble moves through the digestive system. And so they did that multiple times as the visitors stopped by their stations. In creativity, our 4th grade leapers are writing their own Choose Your Own Adventure stories and illustrating them, and you can see that process in the upper right and all the work that goes into the multiple avenues of a Choose Your Own Adventure story. For collaboration, you can see our 5th graders in the lower left working together to build the new robots that just arrived through an innovation grant. They are now coding these robots to simulate transporting a rocket on Mars as part of their year-long space thematic unit so they can prepare for their trip to space camp in the spring. And lastly, for communication, we allow students to communicate through traditional methods, but also through demonstrations such as the Scrabble Get to Know You activity. And we don't have a picture yet, but our 8th grade PEG students are writing their historical thesis defense papers, and I hear the shortest paper is about 25 pages, and the longest is 53 pages. They will present their defense to the public on May 11th, so if you want to hear their historical theory defense presentations, stop by Sperreng in the Little Theater on May 11th. Next slide. In our programs, we understand that personalized learning is the key to growth. In our LEAP programs, we have explored the Missouri Gifted Learning Outcomes, otherwise known as the MOGLOs. And in fact, one of our teachers was instrumental in helping the state develop the Missouri Gifted Learning Outcomes, and that's Mrs. Blackwell, who's an elementary LEAP teacher. The teachers are working to integrate these into our curriculum, and the Elementary LEAP team has developed standards-based goals and report cards around these Missouri gifted learning outcomes. And students participate in goal setting and tracking through a slideshow that they create. And so you can see that in the upper left. They also participate in one-on-one conferencing with their teachers to go over their progress of the goals. And one of the examples, just a part of one of the report cards, is in the upper right. The teachers have used both their professional growth plan, their PGP, and their PLC professional learning communities to focus on this work and develop this approach from gifted learning to standards-based education and learning. In the PEGS elementary program, most teachers are teaching several different grade levels at once to support ability differentiation in class. And additionally, when a child demonstrates both advanced maturity and academic ability, we provide acceleration as needed, both in PEGS and as a support to the general education program at Lindbergh. Lastly, our PEGS middle school program, students create a learning portfolio that showcases what they have learned through what we call Prove It projects. And these Prove It projects allow students to demonstrate their learning through methods that are personally meaningful to them, such as creating a play, making a sculpture, designing a game, or even writing a traditional essay. And in that picture in the lower left, that student is doing more of an interview with his teacher to share his learning, so conversing about his learning in his PEGS history class. Thank you again, and now I'd like to introduce Charlene Ziegler. You may take the microphone.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sparks, how long did you say I had now? I'm teasing, I'm teasing. Oh, okay. I will defer to Dr. Lake and rein it in. Okay, thank you for inviting me here this evening to tell you a little bit about what early childhood has been doing over the last year. We change just a little bit each year, just in response to changes in best practices for early childhood and to meet the needs of our students and families. So our first slide is about social emotional learning, and I will refer to it as SEL. Each year you hear from me that social emotional learning is where we focus the greatest amount of time in our classrooms. While many students will be able to learn these skills by the modeling that the adults in their life provide for them, most students will need additional support to reach their potential in one area or another. I want to talk to you about two aspects of what we've been working on with SEL this year that are new to us. You've heard about the Lindbergh Life Success Skills from all of the other schools, and I'll try to remember to point those out on each slide for which skill is most supported on that slide. This slide actually represents all of those success skills. Our BLT came up with this process of our professional learning community this summer. And what it is our focus for the year was professional learning community, or PLC, and working on those skills as educators. The area that we chose for study in our PLC included those SEL skills that yield the most positive effects for students overall, social emotional ability. So you can see those skills on the bottom right there on the slide: curiosity, self-awareness, personal responsibility. Our PLC is made up of all of our teachers in our 22 special ed and general ed classrooms. We meet each Friday, and every month we focus on one or two of the skills listed at the bottom of that slide. Our PLC meets weekly with a different purpose each week, and throughout the month, we're looking at data from the common assessments created by the individuals working on their individual teams, their PLT teams. On weeks that we're not looking at data, we're collaborating to find new methods of helping our students reach mastery in a specific skill or sharing best practices for the good of the entire PLC. The second item there on the slide that you see is a screen grab from EduClimber. As you know, EduClimber is the system that the district uses to integrate child data. We are adding the level of mastery for the social skills into EduClimber for each student. This means that the teacher who has the student next year will be able to look at where they were this year and then build upon that student's existing skill level. This was the first item added to EduClimber from early childhood, and I'm really proud of our teachers who worked hard to learn this new software and to create this way of sending this information up to our kindergarten teachers. Next slide. Our 4Cs slide has an example for both students and our school community. And you can see from the little pinwheels that we've incorporated 4 of them. The pictures there may not be able to tell you the entire story, so I'm going to share a little bit about it. I was in the classroom doing an observation, and the 3 boys in the picture began getting very animated in their play. So I, of course, started paying closer attention to them because they had a hard wooden ball. I'm not sure if you can see that in the slide. Knowing that the teacher had specifically planned to support the students in their skills of critical thinking, agency, and collaboration, I was happy to see this play happening, and I was happy to see that the teacher intentionally stayed back so the students could practice these skills. It was pretty amazing. They were all working together to figure out how high they could get that little wooden ball to fly in the air after it rolled down the ramp. We all know that this could get pretty out of control quickly, but I was so impressed with the teacher for allowing the learning to happen. They kept adjusting that black ramp and starting the roll at different places on the ramp. Then they got the ball to go a little bit higher and then kept trying to find different ways to stack the blocks to get it to go even higher. They talked with each other, suggesting different strategies, all while listening to each other. It was really pretty cool to see, and it's clear that the students have learned a lot of skill in self-regulation, which allowed that play scenario to stay in control. On the other side of the slide, you can see our focus on collaboration within the different departments, levels, and buildings. This is something that we really work on all of the time, but it also comes out of the Early Childhood Special Ed Task Force, if you remember that from last year, trying to make a more harmonious community where everyone feels like we're on the same team. Through our work with that, we've realized that the words that we use, or our vernacular, can serve to divide us into separate groups. So we set out to change our vernacular, and we've been successful in stopping the use of the most inharmonious terms. And I have some examples on the slide there. In the green, you can see our new terminology, and just above that, in a thinner font, you can see the older terminology that we would use. Perhaps the most difficult habit to break was saying an ECE classroom or an SSD classroom. We settled on describing the different environments when it was necessary, because at times it is necessary to describe which classroom we're talking about. We based that on the type of the teaching that is happening. In a general ed classroom, the class is taught by a general ed teacher. In a special ed environment, the classroom is taught by a special education teacher. Using those environments instead of the employer helps to illustrate that we are all Lindbergh staff helping all of our Lindbergh students. And these small changes have really made a big impact in the collaboration of the staff, and I just couldn't be happier with that. And our final slide is focused on personalized learning and highlights student identity and agency. I don't have students in this picture because this is one of our therapy rooms. And I also need a better name for it. This room evolved over the year. It started in the beginning of this year as just an aside room, but it really has turned out to be pretty impactful for our students. So I wanted to highlight it tonight. So this is one of our individual learning spaces. It's a bright and sunny room that's used for working with students individually or that student and a friend. Personalization happens in the classrooms also, but this room in particular is all about personalizing the needs of the student. The room has minimal distractions, and you can see the types of items that are in the room. It's been very impactful for the students to have a place where they can focus on specific skills. It's used by our social work professionals who do play therapy and by any staff member with a student who needs some time with an adult outside of the classroom. They practice self-regulation and other social skills, work with friends, or whatever will help the individual student. The students really have fun and enjoy learning the new skills to support their growth and perseverance. And they do things such as practicing how to handle the disappointment of a friend not wanting to play with them, or gaining confidence by helping a friend learn a new skill that they are good at. practicing to accept their strengths and weaknesses and to accept themselves as they are, practicing taking turns in a game to gain perspective. The room serves as a special area that students enjoy going to, and it's worked very well for us this year. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
You have 9 minutes for questions.
I just want to give a big thank you to everybody, and I know that it's hard to reflect a full year in just a few slides, but every time, I mean, this is the second time I've seen it, but every time I've seen it, I'm just so thoroughly impressed, and I just want to congratulate all of you on your hard work and for taking your time to talk to us today, and I'm just so appreciative of everything that you do for our district and our students, and I just can't be more grateful, so thank you.
Megan, you said that well. I think tonight many of our principals really gave kudos to our teachers, because our teachers are making this happen in our classrooms for students every day, but also kudos to them for the leadership to take vision and make it a reality. That's hard work, that's daily work, that's ongoing work, and it is reflected in tonight's presentation.
Thank you.
Would agree, just really quick. So I texted Tara, just great job. The presentation, you know, it gets better and better, and it aligns with our work, and you bring that voice in, and just thank you guys. You guys did an amazing job of really, in the short period of time, reflecting our work and how it all ties together. So great job.
So thank you again to our building principals and our program directors for sharing tonight and giving us some more of your time. At this time, do I have a motion to adjourn Board Workshop 1572?
Moved.
Motion by Mike.
Second.
Second by Megan. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Board Workshop 1572 is adjourned.